My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you're here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. When I was growing up, I did a lot of things with my older brother. He is 2 years older than I am. And in many ways, I guess I can say this now, I hope he's not listening to this meditation. He was much more talented than I was. He still is, especially for all kinds of sports. And we would go out together fishing. We would go out together skiing, wakeboarding, or different kinds of things we did as we were growing up. And I would do something like catch a fish, and he would catch five. Or I would pull out a trick in the wakeboard, and he would do something much more impressive than I would. And I kind of had a hard time because I could never really brag about the things I did, because my brother was always bragging about something much more incredible. So whatever I did, it seemed like very little compared to what my brother could do. Something similar we read today in the first book of Samuel, in the first reading of today's Mass. We read about the story of Saul and David. Saul, as we know, was the king of Israel. And they go off to fight the Philistines. And they have this huge battle, and this big, huge Philistine comes out, Goliath, and he dares any Hebrew man to come out and fight him. And whoever won that fight would win the battle. And the other army would just withdraw, and all the Hebrews are super scared because obviously this Philistine Goliath is huge, and it looked like he could crush anybody. Until finally this young boy comes out, David. And he offers himself to fight the Philistine. He prays, and then he goes out without an armor, without a sword. And with this intelligence, and with the grace of God, of course, he was on his side, he ends up defeating the big Philistine Goliath, and he cuts his head off. And they win the battle. And the Philistines retreat. And thanks to David, and thanks to Saul and the whole army, they would come back victorious. And we read in today's first reading how when David and Saul were approaching the cities in Israel, people would come out to greet them, to thank them for restoring their peace and freedom from the Philistines. And the women would play and sing, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s." Saul would hear this, and he would get really angry and resentful of the song and also of David, because he was the king. He was the one that was supposed to take the merit, not this young little boy who he had dared the big giant, but he was no big deal. And he was very jealous of David. And as we know, from that moment on, Saul will try to get rid of David as in any way he can. He try to kill him. And there's all these stories of David fleeing Saul and being persecuted and almost killed, and then David almost killing Saul. It's kind of like a sad story, because this big king, this very wise man, was giving in to something as low as jealousy. But the reality is, we can't really judge poor Saul, because just like I was telling you from my youth, And that's just one story. I guess I could say that same thing about many other people that I've met and I've lived with that were more talented than I was. We can sometimes feel that jealousy, and it's unfortunately so common to us. Sometimes in silly things, right? At school, in workplace, there's always someone that shines brighter than we do. Always someone that kind of gets everyone's attention. At home, because my brother is way more funny than I am, because this guy can play the guitar much better than I can, or maybe I can't at all. This guy gets all the good grades, or this girl is amazingly pretty, or this guy's super athletic, and so many other things that happen to us all the time, because obviously we're surrounded by people that have many talents. We have our own, but others have more talents than we do sometimes. So they have better talents or talents that we don't have. And unfortunately, we get jealous. And we're resentful so many times. And we are critical in our minds. And we think of ways to kind of get rid of these people, or not directly as Saul, right? Wanted to kill David. Maybe we don't get to that point, hopefully. But sometimes say, how can I get him out of our group of friends, right? How can I make him look bad? What can I say? Or sometimes even make up, right? So this girl won't look as good as she always does. How can I throw some dirt on her prestige so that I can shine a little bit more? And it's hard to talk about this. It's hard to accept it because it's such a low thing. It's so embarrassing to recognize it, but it happens to all of us, even to the best of us, in different levels, obviously, with different manifestations, but it happens to all of us. And we need to ask God to take that away from us, because it is a temptation. That's what the devil is trying to do. That's what the devil did with Saul. He got into his soul so that he could be jealous of David and not succeed. Obviously, Saul together with David would have been a great success. They could have done so many good things. The devil likes to do that. He likes to divide. He likes to. And that's precisely what we don't need to give into. Realizing that the gifts that other people have, the talents that they have, the good things they can do are something to give thanks to God for. And the fact that they can jump higher than we can, the fact that they can do something at work better than we can is a great thing. And we should be happy because then we can work with them. And maybe they can complement us in many ways. And they're funnier than we are. And maybe they can make people laugh. And that's great. And we can laugh with them. It's a matter of turning things around. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy for me. I'm sure it's not easy for you. But we can sure try to turn things around and realize, hey, this girl can actually do something better than I can. Great. Maybe I can stay closer to her because I can enjoy her talents. She can play the violin really well, so I'd love to hear someone play the violin. I'm going to hang out with her. I can learn from her. Maybe I can play in the same team so that, well, we can help each other. So many ways to take advantage of other people's talents and be grateful for them. But not being jealous. Let us push that jealousy away. Let us ask God to really purify our hearts, our feelings. Because again, it's unfortunately very common because of our concupiscence, because of our weakness, original sin, that the thought of jealousy will kind of creep into our minds. And we shouldn't be surprised that it does. Let's just ask God to help us, ask God to turn that around and to really make it into an opportunity to thank God for those things that others have. And then to think of how we can help them, how they can help us, how we can complement each other. And that way, make our workplace a better place, our home a better place, a more fun place, our classroom taking advantage of the talents that we all have. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.